Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Daily AFC Bournemouth podcast. Actually today it's going to be AFC Bournemouth / Wolves podcast because we are doing the crossover episode with my colleagues Chris and Nathan from Wolves. They are stronger at the moment, it's 2-1 for them, but doesn't mean that the same will apply on Saturday when Bournemouth will host Wolves. How are you guys?
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm Chris. Hello, hey, and my buddy Nathan is here.
Hello, everyone. Vic, good to see you again. I hope that the result of the weekend is a little bit more positive for the Wolves. I think we're in a more positive vein of form at the minute compared to the last time we met, so a bit more energy behind it.
Yeah, it was astonishing to see 6 goals in the last game, especially 4 of them scored by Bournemouth away. It's not what I expected. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, before we got in this like little studio room together, I was just saying to Nathan that because we gave you 3 penalties, so essentially we won in open play. If you think about it that way.
Was it up to the goalkeeper then? Should you blame the keeper?
Yeah. Well, or the ref. Well, no, actually, we'll blame Gary O'Neill. To be honest, that's where we're going with that one.
See a scapegoat.
I mean, it's the easiest is to put the blame just on the coach, but I'm not going to try to make fun out of this, right? But look what's happening with Man United. How many coaches did they actually exchange in the last year or so? And all of them had the same problem. They just couldn't get the team working. So something must be toxic from inside. Do you think that maybe something like that happened with Wolves as well?
I mean, I'll pass to Nathan in a moment, but if I may, you say it's not all on the coach, but I mean, we were just chatting again about that particular game. For example, Gary O'Neill chose to play Mario Lemina, who's a midfielder, at centre back because he did okay the week before in a game where he had no choice but to play him due to injuries. But once we had centre backs back in the squad available, he put them on the bench and put Lemina, and he gave away the first penalty in like the first few minutes. So, in that particular situation, there was quite a few decisions actually that were very specifically as much. I mean, I was the most optimistic towards Gary O'Neill for a long time in our group, but even I at that point was like, no, done. What about you, Nath?
I think that our performances over the last couple of months have kind of proven that there's quality within the squad where we can compete against the top teams in the division. Now, playing Liverpool away from home at the weekend, Liverpool had a very strong squad. They weren't missing many big name players at all. And we arguably deserved a point out of that game. I thought we were brilliant and just deserved more out of it. And I think that kind of shows that the progression under Vitor Pereira and just the amount that he's been able to do with the players that were already at the club. And granted, there's been a couple of good additions, but I just think we're in a better place. And when I look at the table and the teams that are in and around us, I don't think our squad is that much worse than West Ham's squad. I don't think it's that much worse than Palace's squad. We've just underperformed massively in the first half of the season, which has given us a bit of a mountain to climb. Under Pereira, he looks like he's starting to climb it with some positive performances.
Yeah, and if Bournemouth fans didn't see it, that Liverpool game, we played 12 men as well. If we talk about the officiating, I mean, it was a 12-man Liverpool.
I've seen the highlights.
Yeah,
I've seen the highlights, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, Liverpool, when we played Liverpool a couple of weeks back, Liverpool obviously had a game in one of the European leagues, and you could see the squad that played against the PSV. It was Champions League, right? So, like, none of the players, not even the goalkeeper, was playing from the first squad in that game, and obviously they lost 3-2 to PSV. And then against Bournemouth for the weekend, the full starting 11 went out. Now, there were polemics about whether that was a penalty or Gakpo tripped himself. Bournemouth didn't play bad at all against Liverpool. Neither did Wolves. I mean, we hit the post twice against Liverpool. Right, we had chances. Alisson had 2 amazing saves that should have been a goal, a clear goal, but it was just unlucky on the day. With the form that you've been in since you got the new coach, since Pereira took over, I must say that you look sharp at the moment, and obviously you are fighting to stay to keep that spot in the Premier League. With the form that we're in, obviously chasing the European competition, it's not going to be an easy game. I don't this time expect a lot of goals, to be honest, because I believe that both teams will be playing tough. Wolves maybe will be happy with a point away, because knowing that Bournemouth is now in top 6, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I'm really hoping that we can get the best out of this game. We can take away all 3 points and just carry on that dream about Europe. But it's not going to be easy, because now there's a lot of pressure on the players. And just because we saw what we can do and how far we can go, and now the fans and everyone just, who's following, supporting Cherries, started having expectations. So now, if something unexpected will happen and we lose 3-0 for Wolves, for example, right?
Sounds good.
I don't know how well we would take it. And would that actually break us? And then, we would see something completely different in the other season. I don't know. It's yet to be seen, but it definitely will be a very interesting game. And I'm really looking forward to be at the ground on Saturday.
I think it's interesting what you say about like the expectation stuff. I think we found that a few seasons back under Nuno, where a couple of seasons on the bounce we're in sort of the top 10 in the league, and we decent run in the FA Cup, and all of a sudden you got Europa League. And if you have a bit of taste of success, you just want to see more of it. And I think as football fans, is you're very quick to forget sometimes where you've come from as a club as well. I think we spoke about it earlier on in the season before the previous fixture, how both clubs have kind of been in opposite trajectories over the past season or two. But no, it will be interesting, and I do think that there's enough quality in the Wolves squad to really trouble some of Bournemouth's play, just in general. I think some of our aggression recently has been really good off the ball, and we've tidied up. Chris, you might be able to add on it, but we've tidied up some of those defensive frailties that we had so much under Gary O'Neill, and I think a big part of that has been the addition of Agbadou at the back, who, in my opinion, has just been a brick. He's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the concern is obviously, Agbadou that Nathan mentions is our new centre back who came in the transfer window. Sadly, he got injured in the Liverpool game, so he's probably not going to be in, and apparently out for a few weeks, which is really annoying. But even with Agbadou
is that the one from Red Star Belgrade?
No, that's Giga.
That's Giga.
Yeah.
Right.
Who hasn't yet played. He's been on the bench.
Well, maybe he'll get his chance now.
Maybe, but I believe that Santiago Bueno will be in the middle of the back 3, based on the way that he came in against Liverpool in that spot. Giga stayed on the bench. So I think Giga's a bit younger, despite the fact he's had some Champions League experience. I think given that, at least for the starting 11, Bueno being experienced in the Premier League will take that spot. But even without that, as we mentioned, we're a very different back line to when we played you last. I mean, we mentioned that Lamina was in that formula before. We haven't got that now. We've got a more consistent shape under Pereira. So, even if it's Bueno, Totti and Doc, it's a much more, with Aït-Nouri and Semedo either side, it's a much more stable kind of back 3-5 that just a lot more solid, especially from set pieces, than we were earlier in the season. There's a lot more pace there with Totti in that back line as well. With Agbadou, it would have been even better. And then the anchors of Andre and Gomez in midfield, the Brazilian duo, it's just a lot more stable defensively, I think. So I think it will be a very different test to the last time we met. It's a very different, even though there's a lot of the same players in the squad, it just feels like a very different formula to the way it's playing now.
Right. There are some individual players from Wolves and Bournemouth, but especially from Wolves, that I want to talk about. Aït-Nouri and Mateusz Cunha, who I think if he'd left this winter, I think he'd be relegated, because you can see in the last few games how important he is for the team. But before we start talking about everything, time for a quick break. And before we go on a quick break, right, I do have to mention that this podcast is a part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. It's a unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about the platform we use here at Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high-quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, ya knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Right, we are back after the message from our sponsors. Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm all good.
We can hear you, but we cannot see you. There we go. Ooh. Right. Okay. So I'll let you two first tell me your opinions about who do you think was the best player of Wolves this season so far, and who do you think might be your star man against the game, in the game against Bournemouth this weekend?
You can take that. You can lead,
I'm
Nathan.
going.
It's okay.
I'm going.
Don't fight, right?
I think the most obvious one would always be Cunha on sort of our star player and who's been the most influential this season. He's got us out of so many different problem games, and got the sort of deciding goal against Villa in the local derby recently. Got the second against Blackburn, also scored against Liverpool away with a brilliant take and sort of left-footed shot from outside the box. So I mean, he's been super influential, but we also sometimes forget that there are games where he has been passive, and I know that he does score a lot of goals and he's got a lot of goal involvements, but there are other players across the pitch that have been arguably just as important to the actual solidity of the team, especially recently as we've seen sort of defensive improvements. I think that we mentioned Agbadou recently. I think he's been phenomenal within the sort of, 5-6 games that he's been involved in so far, prior to his just recent injury. I think Ait-Nouri's had some brilliant games as well. He was brilliant on the weekend against Salah. But I mean, personally, I think one of the most consistent players that we have is João Gomez in the midfield. I rate him so highly. I think he is absolutely brilliant. And when
one of the players
big
to
clubs,
watch, yes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when big clubs, and I speak to a lot of friends who are supporting your Arsenals and United, Liverpool, all these, the big dogs, they always talk about Cunha. And I think there's times when I would argue that Cunha wouldn't fit some of their systems, where he's not so good defensively and he's not brilliant at fitting a system like Arsenal's, for example. But when you look at João Gomez, I struggle to think of many systems that he wouldn't fit into, just because of how good his all-round game is just brilliant. And
box-to-box player, yeah.
But just solid on the ball, his tenacity is brilliant. I think the one thing that he can improve on is just sort of, I guess, the emotional side of his game and keeping a cap on when he does sometimes go over the top and fly into challenges where he doesn't need to. But he is also very young still, and he starts for Brazil, so enough should be said there. Where there's players that are playing Champions League week in, week out that can't get ahead of him into that Brazilian team. So yeah, I think he would be my dark horse for Wolves' sort of most consistent player this season.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan took who I was going to say, because I think it's too easy to say Cunha, and I think also Nathan's right. There's been moments where, because he can win you a game, but there's moments where if he can drift out of games because if it's not going his way, he can get a bit emotional. And during the January window, he was, not in form for a few games, maybe because of all the contract speculation and all that kind of stuff. He was maybe in a bit of a mood and he didn't perform. He was actually, fans were getting very frustrated with him during that window because it seemed like he almost didn't want to be there. and he was just not, present. It was almost like 10 men at points. It was very frustrating. But so if you take all that out, I would have said Gomez. So I'm going to highlight someone who you might not even see, who might even just be on the bench for most of the game, because my young player of the season is Rodrigo Gomez. He is the fans' favourite of the season. Most people want him to be starting more. He's young, he's a winger, but he also plays wing back either side, left or right. And he just gives 110%, runs like a whippet up and down, and it doesn't matter that he's a bit smaller than everyone else. He'll win a header because he just leaps. Like he'll fight for everything, and everyone wants him to be on the pitch more. He's he's a fan's favorite, and everyone's like, why is he not getting more time? But when he does come on, I love him. I just love him.
And what's your opinion on Ait Nouri? I mean, I remember when the season started, he was crazy.
I mean,
as the season went on, he dropped his form a bit, but he's still there. He's still good.
Yeah. He's, Nathan may have different opinions, but I know that Will on our pod loves him exceptionally as well. I think he's fantastic. I think there's a reason he's not currently yet with, a team that's not Wolves, because of the fact that he can at times be a bit weaker defensively. When we were frail earlier in the season, there was a lot coming down his side of the pitch where if he hasn't got the right centre-back behind him, like now Totti's back in the team, back from injury, and that left side is stronger, it allows him to roam more and get in less trouble. If it's more on him defensively, he's actually not as strong. Going forward, arguably beautiful, and a lot of people, again, want to see him played more as just a winger than a wing back.
He's a good attacking wing back, I'd say.
And when he and Cunha are in flow together, they've really started to build a rapport. You can see some of the little tricks they do, the back heels to each other, and the way they interplay when Cunha drops deep. But it's all dependent on who's behind him for me. And if it's not Totti or someone's not there to cover, he can lose. Like he's bizarrely though, if he knows he has to be 100% defensive, like he's marked Salah. We were talking about Liverpool earlier. He's marked Salah out of most games that Wolves have played against them, because Salah comes down that side and he's nearly always shut him out. But if it's a game where he can be more attacking and he has to roam, suddenly it's like, oh, where am I defensively? It all goes a bit pear-shaped. So, and I think that's why one of the reasons he's maybe still with us.
He definitely needs structure. I think you've nailed it, Chris. Like he just needs a little bit of structure, and the players around him, where Totti's been in the squad for a while now, players like João Gomez in and around him that are just securing his position a little bit more, especially defensively. Ait Nouri just strikes me as someone who at school was late to turn up, didn't do the homework on time, but then the odd project where he was just unreal and producing work that no one else can. And I think it's the same on the football pitch. Like going forwards, the guy can do stuff that not many fullbacks can do. His technique and ability to get past someone is insane, and you don't see that in many players. He plays like he's playing in the park at times, but then he also defends like he's playing in the park at times as well. So, yeah, he needs he needs some of that structure around him. But I think he's been very good over the last couple of games.
Maybe more experience in the Premier League. I remember we had the similar issue with our left back Cherries when he signed for Bournemouth, and I was, since the first game, I was saying that he's a great addition. He needs time to fit in the team. Not a lot of time, but he needs time to get used to Premier League as well. And the work that he needs to do is to become more defensive, because we had this first half of the season where Bournemouth didn't do really great in the first 7 games. We had only 2 points when Iraola took over and everything, and he was just going forward like crazy, but didn't run back every time, or just didn't know how to defend. Now this season we're seeing completely different left back. Hence why Liverpool, Man United, all the big clubs want him for 50 million. It's crazy. And I think Ait Nouri might be going the same way, following the same steps. And hopefully one day you'll get good money for him. Regarding Cherries, I'd love him to stay. But this is obviously a part of the big plan, and Bournemouth has signed another left back. They know what's going to happen in the summer. And, if the player wants to leave, you cannot just tell him, no, you can't leave, and keep him unhappy, because that will affect the whole team at the end of the day. But yeah, so Kirk is obviously one of the players that I could talk until the next season, probably, as long as he stays with us. And the other one who's been fascinating for me was actually Dango Tara, who managed to beat all of our expectations, seeing him play as a striker. Right, the guy who came and started as a winger, then in some of the games being forced to play left back when Kirk has got injured, then again left midfielder, and now with two of our strikers both being out, we've seen Dango playing a striker. Second game, he scored a hat-trick. How crazy is that? Against Forest, who was third on the table at the time. Last game, he scored a powerful header. It's just enjoyable watching him, and I think it will be a very difficult decision when our strikers come back. What are you going to do with the player in form who is not playing in his position? It's going to be very difficult. Same goes for our midfielders, Christie and Adams. Obviously, with Lewis Cook, who is originally midfielder, but being forced to play right back because both of our right backs are injured. So when our right back comes back from injury, what's going to happen with our midfielders? There's a lot of things to talk about in Bournemouth's team. What's going to happen when the injuries end? Who is going to stay on the pitch? Who is going to stay in the starting 11? And it's really difficult, because some of the players obviously need to go. Financial fair play, and it's just not going to be easy. Kluivert, I'll finish off with Kluivert, and then we'll go for another quick break. Kluivert has been having great seasons so far, top scorer of Bournemouth. But my personal opinion, I don't know how you guys see this, and if you've seen Kluivert playing so far, but I think he wouldn't be the same player at any other club. I think he's a star player because he plays for Bournemouth, and this is probably one of the rare clubs that he can be a star player in. I don't know if you agree with me. I think same with Cunha.
I've watched him. Yeah, I think the caliber of player is slightly different to Cunha. I really like Kluivert. I think he's I like his versatility, and he just looks like he exudes confidence. I mean, the way he took his penalties against Wolves, like so cocky, but
yeah, that was the first hat trick of the season. I think.
Yeah. It's the type of player you'd love to have on your team, but I think Cunha's slightly different. I mean, Kluivert, your attack is so threatening from all angles. I really like Semenyo. I think he is such a powerhouse on the wing, and with both feet, he's such a threat to fullbacks. And I can see Ait-Nouri struggling defensively against him, just because of the power that he has. But just in the comparison to Kluivert and Cunha, and I'm being completely biased here, I think Cunha can single-handedly dominate a game, bring a team so far up the pitch and frighten an entire defence and take it past six players, that sort of stuff. And there's other times where he might drift out of a game, right? He's kind of quite polarising in that sense, whereas I think Kluivert has been so consistent this season and his output is a little bit more consistent in that point of view. I'd say Cunha's a little bit more erratic, but when he's... Yeah. So I think that would be the difference that I'd probably make between the two from what I've seen of Kluivert.
Chris, did you want to say anything?
No, I think Nathan. I haven't got anything better to say than what Nathan said. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Time for another quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back to do the team's prediction and the score prediction. Stay tuned.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Every club, every day. The The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Ahoy! Right. Okay. With obviously Bournemouth being favourite in this game, sitting in the 5th position, and Wolves sitting in the 17th position, right? With nearly 20 points difference between these two clubs.
You don't have to keep reminding us. You don't have to keep reminding us.
It's just for the listeners. Right. Maybe we're going to be, when we do another crossover episode, hopefully, if you don't get too much rage after the game on Saturday, or if I might get rage, I don't know. Hopefully there will be a different mood, right? I'm not sure how this is going to go for the weekend. Obviously, I hope for the best. You hope for the best. But talking about 2 games that we've got between each other in the next couple of weeks, I'll be happy with 1 draw and 1 win for Bournemouth. Now, we're not going to talk about the Cup, okay, at the moment, because we'll leave that for the Cup episode. But I want to hear your opinions about this Saturday. What do you think the score will be? And obviously, team prediction and who will be maybe the man of the match or the star player of Wolves.
Chris, I'm gonna let you go first, Chris, because the last time I did a prediction for Bournemouth Wolves fixture on the last crossover, I predicted a really low scoring game, and clearly I know nothing about football because there were 6 goals.
What did I can't remember. What did I say?
I don't know, but it wasn't as bad of a prediction as mine was.
I think we both missed.
Well,
I definitely missed. I think I went 1-1 and it was 4-2. So, Chris, take it away.
Okay, yeah. I mean, logically, like you said before, I confirm. I'll just say that, yeah, I'd be happy. Points are vital to us. I know they're vital to everyone, which sounds obvious, but given the battle that's going on right now, happily would take a draw. However, as we mentioned, the form's been good. More recently, obviously, we beat Villa. We should have scored more. It should have been 3 or 4 at least. We only scored a couple, but we dominated that game. I know it was only Blackburn in the cup, but again, we looked solid. And I know we lost to Liverpool, but I mean, the second half, Liverpool didn't get a shot on target, a shot at all. I think they had one that was offside, and that was it. So we've shown that with the form is a lot more stable now. So I think we could surprise. And so I'm going to be optimistic, especially as you keep slamming the league positions in our face. And I'll say it's going to be 2-1 to Wolves.
Oh. That was actually the last season. I remember when Wolves played in Bournemouth, I was at the game. We were 1-0 up, and I think Kalajic went onto the pitch and he scored 2 goals and he won 2-1. And I was like...
Cunha scored the first one, but Kalajic scored the second, yeah.
And as a side note, our form statistically, I believe, is very good away to you guys and terrible at home. Like we've lost the last 3 or 4 against you at home, but we've always come away with something away. So I mean, obviously that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's just intriguing. So fingers crossed that continues for us.
Nate,
am I going next on predictions?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. Yeah, you can if you got anything to add or any different opinions to give.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm getting nostalgic to João Moutinho's screamer at the Vitality Stadium a few years ago when Wolves beat Bournemouth. I think it was 1-0 or whatever. Anyway, he scored an absolute screamer. And what a player he was. So I'm going for a 1-0 Wolves win with a Mateus Cunha free kick, just to kind of bring that nostalgia back. It'll probably be 5-5, but what do I know?
As long as he stops trying to score from corners. I know he's done it once this season, but he just need a few crosses into the box from a corner, Cunha, please, because he keeps trying to do it now. He's done it once.
It is windy down in Bournemouth, so he might get lucky.
Yeah, maybe.
It is. So what I mean, obviously, and then you can do combined. Let's say if you do combined starting 11, would you think is going to come out on the pitch on Saturday? And you said with 3 at the back, so I believe that you will stick with 3 at the back.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the back is pretty set, especially the only change is Aga going out, but I'm pretty sure Santiago Bueno will be the one come in the middle. So as I mentioned, Aït-Nouri, Totti, Bueno, Doc, and then Semedo. Midfield would be Andre and Gomez. The only variation is going to be up front. So obviously Cunha. Now, Strand Larsen has been out injured. He scored 7 goals already for us this season and a couple of assists in his first season in the Premier League. He is back in training now, but I very much doubt he'll start, given that he's been out
So
with a
that's Salah
hamstring.
Gintish, I guess, yeah.
So the last couple of games, even though Gage has started up front, because Hwang is also out injured, we've seen Manetzi come on as a false nine in the second half of games, and he's done pretty well. So there's an argument that Manetzi could actually get a start in that position, maybe. But I'm going to play safe and go Gage, Cunha, and Rodrigo Gomez, because I really want to see him, but it's probably going to be Sarabia.
Okay, and you said 2-1, and Nathan said 1-0, and you both hope for the win, for the away win at Vitality. Now, Vitality is a very interesting ground. I don't know if any of you guys have had the chance to come here before, but I did speak to one of the Bournemouth players 2-3 weeks ago, and back when he used to play for a club before he moved to Bournemouth, he said that Vitality is one of the scariest stadiums if you're playing away. The pitch is weird. You need to get used to the pitch. The fans, everything, because the smaller stadium, everything is so close, right? So, and me as a fan going to watch every home game is just, it's an amazing feeling. I get goosebumps like 75 times per game. It's crazy. It's crazy. And being in the form that we're in now, right? I'm going to say 1-0 to Bournemouth.
Well, yeah.
And I think Semenyo will score again. Or maybe Claver from a penalty. I don't know.
Not again.
You probably know. You probably. I think if Sa would commit another penalty and then Cliver took it and scored, I don't think you'd want Sa goal anymore, right?
No, he's far better than Johnston. No, I don't want Johnston back in the sticks.
Yeah, no.
I know.
No.
I wonder what are we going to do at the end of the season when Kepa goes back to Chelsea, because we got Kepa on loan, right? It's going to be very interesting whether we're going to sign. I think we're going to sign the keeper. Although our second keeper, Mark Travers, who played a few games before he went out on loan to Middlesbrough now in the winter, he was really good. He managed to keep a couple of clean sheets as well, he wasn't bad, especially against Chelsea. Like that 2-2 draw that we played in Stamford Bridge, it was unlucky. They scored from a free kick in 94th minute, but Travers was very good that game. 1-0. Semenyo scores. It will be a very tough game. I believe we won't score until probably last 15 minutes of the game, as we usually do. Starting 11, definitely our back four. Kerkers on the left. So we've got Housen and Zabani, who've been brilliant, the youngest centre back pair in the league. They've just been amazing, and it's really scary to think of any of them leaving in the summer. Obviously, Housen's clause will activate in the summer, which means that he will be available to get directly into negotiations if somebody pays 50 million, which is great money for Bournemouth because we got him only for 20. But hopefully he will stay another season, and if Bournemouth gets to see the Europe, maybe players will have why to stay, another extra reason. Speaking about the last defender, Cookie on the right, obviously with our right back Adam Smith still injured, and Araujo being out until next month, I believe. Midfield, Christie and Tyler Adams, who's been very underrated, but since he was back from injury, being very consistent, and he's such a good defensive dynamo that it's just enjoyable to watch him. Anticipation, tackles. He's a player that could easily play in a bigger club and play as well. Our three midfielders / wingers and the shadow striker. So Clivert in the middle, Semenyo on the right, Semenyo on the left, Brooksy on the right, and up front Dango Tara. So 1-0 to Bournemouth. Obviously, we will be going live from the stadium on the day on our social media with videos, photos, chants. So stay tuned. Please follow our Instagram page and keep updated live from the stadium. Until then, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Nathan,
Thanks
Chris.
for having us.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
having us.
Thanks
good.
for everyone for listening, and we will be back, hopefully, everybody, in another crossover episode a few days before the Cup game when we meet again at Vitality, right? And we will be chatting about what happened this Saturday. We'll be having a chat about the game. Let's say a short post-match review, and then talk a bit about the Cup and who will get that silverware, right?
Indeed.
Thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Till the
Take
next
care.
episode. After Cherries!
See you later.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.